I want to just briefly highlight for you all some of the assets and resources available to you if you're interested in investing in blended learning. I think most of you have participated already in some of our dissemination events about our 3 priority learning approaches we're seeking to scale: hub and spokey mentoring, blended learning, and mobile social learning. We have a theory of change, minimum specifications, and some detailed tools that you can use for each of these approaches. I did want to highlight in the screen is a link and the image of our blended learning section of that toolkit. And thanks in large part to the Catalyst Oral Prep Blended Learning Fund, which Julie and Palelo and I have worked on very intensely over the last 4 months, with Palelo and Julie doing most of the heavy lifting. We now have a human-centered design, a sample agenda, and PowerPoint deck that you could use to do a human-centered design meeting with end users to help inform the design and delivery of your learning interventions, not as much the instructional design, but like the implementation. We have blended learning implementation guidance for the facility, like how can you deliver a blended approach where learners do some digital content and practice activities. We have that now for Botswana for oral prep, and we have one that's fairly developed for malaria. We have a link to the available JPIGO e-learning courses that are all available in the World Continuing Education Alliance platform, which is scaled to over 500,000 health workers around the world. That includes courses on RMNCH, family planning, immunization, nutrition, you name it. There's about 25 USAID authored courses. And then Alice is working on more detailed blended learning process map. So we have more resources, but I wanted to highlight those are some of the new resources that are available. I do encourage you, if your project is interested in blended learning, to reach out to Alice, because it's a different animal than just designing a one-time group-based, sit them in a room, lecture practice type training. And so Alice, I do want you to just share with the group a little bit more about your background and how you can support. And she'll be in Baltimore next week. For those of you that are around and would like to meet her, we have a bunch of different meetings set up for her. Alice, a few minutes for you.
Okay. Thank you, Julia. So as has been mentioned, my name is Alice Muraburi. I am the Regional Learning Advisor, currently based in Nairobi, Kenya. I recently joined JPIGO from the Aga Khan Network. And while at Aga Khan, I was the head of the blending and learning, supporting South Central Asia, East Africa, and the UK entities. I have worked closely with healthcare professionals, of course, in that case, as subject matter experts, working together with them in designing blended learning courses using mobile social learning and generally using technology for training and capacity building. So please feel free to reach out. I really look forward to our interaction. JPIGO already feels like home, and I definitely look forward to our interaction. So please feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Alice. Maggie, that's it from my side.
All right, we have just a few more minutes. So actually, Maggie, go ahead and just go to the next slide and I'll just talk through it really quickly so that we can wrap up with time. One last thought that I wanted to just mention before people went away on this is a little bit of question around evaluation options. And one of the things that doing the gap analysis is helpful for is helping to point you towards different kinds of evaluation or assessment options and things like that. So if you've identified knowledge or procedure as the main kind of gaps, the knowledge gaps, then we can look at things like some kind of test to assess knowledge or to assess their knowledge of the procedures or performance of the procedures. If you're looking at skills, those are much harder to do through a multiple choice test. You can do scenario-based stuff in them, but really you're looking at probably some kind of performance or coaching. You might be coaching with a rubric or a checklist or something to make sure that people are executing well on those. For motivation, if you've identified that a gap and you want to do some measurement around it, things like surveys, focus groups, observation of whether the behaviors are actually happening. Those are some strategies for that. For habits, a lot of times it's an observation thing. It might be a self-assessment. It might be something that gets built into coaching or a supportive supervision kind of routine in terms of checking in with people on habit stuff. And a lot of times environment comes down to things like checklists that they use, or to try to figure out gaps in the environment or system support as a way to look at that question. I just wanted to briefly mention that the gaps that you identify as part of your learning assessment also then feed into how you strategize around evaluation or assessment for things. And if there's any questions about that or anything else, I think we've got a feedback survey we'd like people to do and things like that. But I'm happy to hang out for a few minutes, or if you've got questions right now.
I have a basic question that I feel a little sad I'm asking this in the last 10 minutes of class. But when we say blended learning, I still haven't quite grasped what we're blending. Are we blending virtual and not virtual? Are we blending like different learning activities, or why is it called blended learning?
Can I answer that? So
Yeah, that one's for you,
formal-
Julie.
Like the formal JPIGO definition,
Yes.
because Bina, it's not, don't feel bad about asking that question, because everyone defines it differently. And a lot of people just define it as combining different learning approaches. The way we define it, because this is what we use for our theory of change and minimum specifications, and I'm just going to share my screen really quickly, is JPIGO defines it like this. Obviously, this is our internal facing capacity building website. Our definition is combining methods, but that it does include some type of digital learning plus some type of hands-on practice or training. And this definition, I'm happy to say, is consistent with the WHO Digital Education for Health Worker guidelines that came out in 2020. So you're going to hear blended learning talked about a million different ways, but this is how we're defining it within our organization. Over. Stop.
Okay. What's that big bottom circle? There's blended learning, mobile
Oh.
study.
That's a hub and spoke mentoring, which is more like a combined learning and quality improvement approach.
Great, thanks.